This week's topic is strife. Strife. We've all experienced it. We've all been a part of it or something. What is strife? Strife is that yelling, that screaming, that arguing, or sometimes even worse, the silent treatment or ignoring or or walking into a room. Have you ever walked into a room and you could feel the strife in the room? You could feel that tension. Well, most of us have been a part of that or are a part of that at one point and another. Maybe you're not a screamer and a yeller, but still tensions can get high when you disagree about something with your spouse, with your kids, with a friend, with a boss, with a coworker. We could go on the list. The dictionary describes strife as bickering, arguing, a heated disagreement, or an angry undercurrent. But the most dangerous form of strife is an angry undercurrent because it's not quite just out there where everybody can see it. We all know what's going on. Usually that's temporary. Usually the passionate voice is a temporary thing. But when there's this undercurrent, it can go on and on and on, and it can ruin relationships. You can feel it in the atmosphere. Something's not right. And maybe you know it's not right, or there's this distance that you don't even know about that's between you and who was once a friend. It's not quite clear that everything's that everything's okay, because it's not okay. So maybe you're one who has been angry and you walk around and you just completely ignore the other person. You have this alternative activity that you sort of run to, but you make a point of it. So everything is slamming and over exaggerated. So the other person gets the message. Well, the only person that's getting affected and hurt is you. And honestly, well, in a way, both of you, I guess, or both of us, or all of us, because what does the enemy want to do? He wants to steal, kill, and destroy. And the easiest and fastest way to do that is to divide us from one another. He works endlessly. Hasatan works endlessly to create strife in our lives, to create offense, that turns into bitterness and hate and so many other things. And it happens in businesses. It happens in congregations. It happens in school. It happens in the most important relationships of your life. Why does he do it? Because he knows when you are unified that you're powerful in Yah's kingdom. If you're walking in shalom, if you're walking in peace and unity, then much can be accomplished. But if you're divided, you fall, and so does everything else. Psalm 133:1 says, how good and pleasant it is when God's people, when Yah's people dwell together in unity. Well, okay. Why? Because there's something that happens when we're all working together, when there's that shalom, that we function as a body. The body is healthy, the body is strong, and therefore operates optimally. There's an anointing that comes in the power and the presence of the Ruach HaKodesh to do our jobs, to raise our kids, to be a wife, to be a husband, to do all the things that Yah's asked us to do. So let's look at strife in the Hebrew. Strife. Medan. I want you to think about Joseph and his brothers. There was discord and there was strife. And that's where you look to see, what does that exactly mean then? Since there was this strife going on, what's going on here? Well, it can mean a discord or a quarrel that can be stopped, that can't be stopped once it gets going, that Medan. But it is actually a word for endless arguments and bitterness. And why do I say endless? Because I said before, when you allow that spirit of strife into your life, all of a sudden there's offense, and then there's bitterness, and then there's hate, and you can go on because it builds and it builds, and all of a sudden the relationships are broken and they're never the same again, all because oftentimes it's something silly, some misunderstanding. And that's not good, because then you turn into that one in Proverbs 16:9, a false witness who utters lies and spreads strife among brothers. How do I mean that? There's a progression when you look at that scripture on what we're doing to destroy relationships. And ultimately it ends in that, when you're separating brothers. Well, what's an example of separating brothers? Well, ultimately we can think of Joseph and his brothers, and both are at fault. He was young and said things he shouldn't have said. He was maybe there was some arrogance in it, and his brothers had because of that, responded in treachery, and it destroyed a family for years and years. Yes, was that God's plan? Yes, it was. So do we give that as our excuse? Well, we can be in strife because maybe it's God's plan. No, it's not. But Yah knows what we're going to do, and he uses that. Both sides contributed to the tension there. Strife is not how Yah intended us to live. It's not how he intended us to be. He wants harmony. He wants unity. He wants us as his children to be peacemakers. Yeshua left us with a peace that's beyond this world. Yes, he did. And we still act as though we're like Joseph and his brothers. And here's what's sad, because we're fighting so much in amongst ourselves, whether it's in our families or in our communities, in our congregations, that we fail to look at the real things, that the real enemy, which is not flesh and blood. We've talked about that. And it's out there, because if he can distract us to look inward, then we're no good outwardly. Let's get rid of strife. So what good is it? It's not good. We need to try to stay away from it, to avoid it, to be the peacemakers, to say, I'm sorry, or ask for forgiveness, even if you're not in fault. Is there anything wrong with that? And I know we've had a conversation on the word, sorry, apologize, if that's a better word. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be you. It's just that your goal is to create unity so you can be used in the kingdom. So you both, or the parties that are at hand, can be used in the kingdoms. And the word says to go make it right with your brother. Because when there's something that happened, that there was strife in a relationship, years later, the strife, or that moment, that those incidences that created it, they can still hurt. Not because you're a victim necessarily, because there's no victims when you're spreading strife, but because you're still, that moment has become a part of you. Strife is like this weed in a garden. It propagates itself until everything is choked out. I think of bindweed. I do not know how to get rid of bindweed here in the Panhandle of Texas. Its roots go feet deep, if not more. And it just comes up and it spreads. If you pull it, it spreads more. And it will wrap itself around anything and choke the life out of it. It's weed. Well, that's what strife does. Strife destroys. It destroys, and it brings forth death in all sorts of things, relationships and families and communities and congregations, and so much, even vision and what Yah wants you to do. We've got to walk away from that strife, because it seems that most of life's behavioral ills have the same cure. What is it? It's Yeshua. It's his Torah. So if you haven't been in strife for a while, but there's something that stemmed from that all those years ago, and your relationship with that person has not been the same, that weed is dormant, but it's still active. That incident, that conversation, that hurt is dormant, but it's still active. And it's always going to be there until you dig it out, until you offer it to Yah, till you bring forth, get deliverance. And it it's a sacrifice. It's got to be burnt up. So let 1 Peter 3:11 says, pursue. Do not merely desire peaceful relations with Yah and with your fellow men and with yourself, but pursue or go after peaceful relationships that are built strongly upon his word, peaceful relationships where all the parties are walking in that shalom. Well, I want to look at the word pursue just real quick. Pursue, Radaf, number 7291 in your Strong's Concordance. It means to pursue or to chase and even persecute, this Radaf. But it's also usually a term that refers to a man or a group pursuing for another purpose of taking revenge or war. But it also has this idea of a bride pursuing her groom, or vice versa. There's pursuit. The TWOT says, in the well-known phrase from Psalm 23, God blessing itself is said to follow. Which is not as strong enough for the sense of the root there. It should be more active. Only goodness and mercy shall pursue me. And we've talked about that in Walking in Spirit of Truth, what that truly means, going after, chasing down till you take over. Are we chasing after peace in our lives, or do we like to sit in the hurt? Do we like to sit and dwell in what has happened in our past, or who did what? Well, the answer is honestly yes. People carry those hurts for so long, and it just destroys, and it ruins what you could do in the kingdom. We've got to make this effort, this true effort, and take action to chase after, to pursue, to redoff, to go after peace in relationships, removing strife from our families, from our friendships, from congregations, from all the areas of our lives, from our jobs. Because if we're really going to pursue shalom, if we're really going to pursue peace, we can't wait around for everyone to come and apologize to us. That's silly. That is just plain silly, because then you're sitting waiting around because you think you were wrong. Well, you know what? Probably the other party thinks they were wrong too. And so you're sitting there, and this silence becomes this chasm where nobody seems willing to cross. Chasing after shalom, chasing after peace means you're going to resolve issues quickly and apologize when you do not feel like it. That Hebrew word for follow is also there. Follow and redoff, they're the same thing, that pursuing. And again, I'm going to give this example, just a relational example. In the Civil War, at the beginning of the Civil War, many of the wives would follow their husbands and stay in the tents as he moved from place to place. Even though he was soldiering, she wanted to be with him wherever he went. That's redoff. That's pursuing. Now, that might not have lasted the whole Civil War, but at the beginning, these women would do the duties they normally did, but they so longed the presence of their husband, their bridegroom, that they would chase after him. Their motivation was out of love. Well, our motivation should be out of love for one another. So we pursue that shalom. We follow, we pursue it, chase after it, seek after it. Just as Yah's chasing after us, looking for that harmony, looking for that relationship healing, because unity is where we need to be as Yah's people. Unity is where we need to be as his bride. Unity is so important, but the enemy does not want it. He does not want it. Romans 12:16 says, live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but readily adjust yourself to give yourselves an humble task. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Don't be conceited. We are supposed to live in peace, and that's going to require us to take responsibility even for our own thoughts, because what we think is, our mind is a womb, and it will be birthed in our actions and our deeds. And therefore, if we have that strife, if there's something going on, then we are going to we are going to act differently than we would if that thing wasn't in the back of the mind, that history wasn't there. Walk in shalom. Walk in shalom. We're going to have to humble ourselves and do some adapting and some adjusting and pursue, chase after that peace, removing strife. And that's going to bring forth light. That's going to bring forth life in relationship, and that's going to restore his kingdom. Mark.
Here I am.
There you are.
What are we talking about? Strife.
Strife and yes, strife.
Really? That's still a thing today?
It definitely is.
Okay, made some notes. Chasing after peace. Wow, what a great expression. Did you come up with that, or did you find that somewhere?
I don't know. With all the studying I did, I might have seen her. I might have put some words together in my own words, but it's what we need to do.
Wow, that's the poster that needs to be in every room, in every synagogue, in every congregation, in every church, everywhere. That, in every building in the world, they should have a poster that says "Chase after peace."
Chase after
peace. That's good. I like that a lot. Okay, effort takes effort.
Yeah.
Why should it take effort? Shouldn't it just be commonplace for us if we notice that? And really what it comes down to is just disagreements. You disagree with what I say or think or do, and you may not verbalize it, but you may show that you disagree with something that someone has done. You show it. It's obvious that there's a disagreement. I don't go along with whatever you're wanting to do. And to me, there's nothing wrong with those things. It's when you don't address it. I think that's where strife, that is the birth of strife, is addressing something that you know is out of place with another person, with a relationship. And of course, you and I, we know each other. We don't get to be together, hang around each other that much, but we've done enough shows, or we've, talked online, that type of thing, that I know I have said things that either should have offended you, or maybe it did offend you, or something like that. And I think I always come to you and say, was that offensive? Do you remember some things like I've said on Reason, on John's show? And
No.
there's all of us there, and I say some things, and later I'm like, yeah, no, that wasn't right. But I always try to come to you or whoever and email you and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have probably gone there. And I know I've done that to you.
I don't, if you have, I don't even
Well,
remember
there
it.
you go.
It's not a, it's a I don't even remember it. So
That's the whole deal right there. That's the difference in it. And that should be our everyday walk of life, is that we just go on like that. But see, there's no effort in that. If our mindset is that I'm just not going to allow that to offend me, or yeah, I really didn't like that, but I'm choosing to, what is it? Choosing after peace. See? And so then there's no effort in that. But I give you a little background. My mom, God rest her soul, I miss my mom so much. My mom was offended by the littlest thing, and she would never talk to you or the people she knew or anything like that. It was literally Grudge City, and she didn't really talk about it too much until it was, whatever it was brought up. Let's just say that one of her friends at work offended her by saying something, and that's good enough. And that she would come home and she'd be mad, and we'd ask her about it, and it's nothing, but we knew what the deal was, and then she'd start talking about it, and then she'd tell you what the deal was, but unless you asked her about it, and I mean, the whole rest of the family, just our whole lives, we kind of knew what areas to go and where not to go. But my point on this is the way I was raised. Okay. Means that this was my mindset that was instilled in me growing up, is that if you are offended or you disagree with somebody in relationships, then you hold that in, because basically my mom didn't like the confrontations, and so she kind of instilled in us not to want confrontations and to be offended and hold it in and hold grudges. And I've lived most of my life like that. Now the effort to me today is I have to recognize that and get past that, but it is an effort for me, because I have to address that in my life. And I don't want to, but I do have to, because it's just, at 68 years old, I'm still dealing with things that I was taught when I was 8 years old. See, And so I understand this and I see it. I am a part of that. But on the other side of that same story is now my wife, who though we may have a disagreement or an argument or something, and we've had our share of them, it wouldn't be but minutes to an hour that it's gone. It's just not there. I mean, it's just like she's got past that. Very, 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 very few times in the years that we've been married have I ever known her to just be kind of not happy about something, and keep it going, or something. One of the kids did something that she just really doesn't like, so you can tell that that's bothering her, but pretty much life goes on. Well, that was a little hard for me to deal with when we first got together. It was like, you did something that I didn't like. Okay, now I'm going to be mad for the next 4 or 5 days. But she wasn't. She's not going to be mad, and I'm living with her. And so how do I deal with this? You're not mad every day. The life's going on every day, but I'm upset with this situation, and I don't want the confrontation, but, we can talk about this. As far as she was concerned, fine, we've dealt with it. We had an argument, disagreement. Now I'm going on with life, and I'm not. She's going on with life, but I'm not. So I had to learn. If I'm going to keep this relationship going, I had to put the effort in. She didn't have to, but I had to put that effort in there. And as of today, I've learned to not let it ride, to choose peace and not let it ride. But then maybe at a later time we'll talk about it, or maybe we need to talk about it right then and there and try to get it out. The only problem is that especially with husbands and wives, wives are set on this is the way that it has to be, and husbands are set on no, this is the way it has to be. And maybe there's never really a compromise there, but there's no strife. You just have to go on and not allow the strife to keep going. And so I have constantly said I'm a better man because I have learned through my wife to be a certain way. And it has helped me in a lot of different ways. And of course, she's no big deal with her, but so I've lived through it my entire life. I understand strife. I've been there. I've done that. All that kind of stuff. So that's my take on it. I've lived through it. I've gotten around it. I'm on the and I'm on the other side.
Awesome.
So, that good enough for you?
Sounds great to me.
Okay. All right.
I think that pretty much does it for that for our snippet of topic. So
a snippet of topic.
Well, I could preach for an hour and do a lot more, but that's not this show.
We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet.
Socialization issue. I thought we would discuss the socialization issue because, you've already prayed and you're using you're going to use the Bible as your foundation. And now people are going, oh no, you shouldn't homeschool. What about socialization? I don't know about you, Sandy. I know you homeschool, and all you homeschoolers out there that have homeschooled, we seem to get that. Oh, your child needs to socialize. Well, today, it seems like no kid socializes anymore. They're all with their faces and phones. Mm-hmm. But my concern about socialization is, yes, my child, when they were homeschooling, and yeah, I'm a retired homeschooler. Well, homeschoolers never retire. But anyway, they socialized, but they didn't socialize with just kids their own age. They socialized from wee little babies all the way to 90-some-odd-year-old adults. So they had that expansion of socialization where they were able to have adult conversations when needed, and then they knew how to come down a level to talk to children. And in schools, all the children are bottled for 6 to 8 hours in a building with the same children. And these children, some of them come from broken homes. Some of them have mouths on them that, do you want your child to learn from these type of children, from these people, or do you want them to learn from you, the habits and everything? But also the other thing is I find interesting is, socialization. And here you go, bringing your child into a classroom, first day of school, to a stranger. You don't know this person other than this is the teacher. And this stranger is going to teach you how to speak to others, how to be appropriate, and all this stuff. Is this what you want? Because what it is you're having this person really 6 to 8 hours training up your child 5 days a week. And so socialization is not an issue. Don't let people make you think that you cannot have your child socialize and that it's something that's, not worth it. It's not a issue at all for homeschooling. All homeschoolers have great social skills. And in fact, I think they have the best social skills I've ever seen.
I would agree with you, Joe, because you're dealing with every generation. You're learning how to communicate. You're not being baby talked to or dumbed down with the peer group. You're getting it all. You're getting all the generations. The social issue that people bring up is a farce for homeschooling.
It is. It's a lie. And what's interesting is my kids now, they're all adults, and they were all homeschooled. And my youngest daughter went to college, and she had a hard time with dealing with peers her own age because she says, Mom, their knowledge and their wisdom is so low compared to what I've been taught, because I've been taught by so many different adults on how to represent myself, and when she speaks, she doesn't say, oh my God,
I listen to the millennials, and like is every other word, like this, man, like this.
Yeah, so they are able to articulate themselves a lot better. And when they get out into the workforce, they're able to communicate with many different levels of people out there. And people seem to really, they're like magnets. Homeschoolers seem to be like magnets to many different people because they're able to, like my daughter works in a pharmaceutical situation, and she's able to talk to a young teenager that's getting some meds, and she's able to talk to them at their level, but then she can talk to an elderly person at their level. And that it's balance. It's a balance thing, and it really does work. And it is not something, it's a fear tactic that is used so many times. Just brush it aside. It's a lie.
It is. And just as an addendum, you can go into congregation and gathering. You've got that too. And guys, if you can homeschool, it's the way to go. It is the way to go. And there's organizations out there that you can do field trips together and proms and all of that.
Co-ops and all that. And
I've always been a part of that. Jonathan was a part of that. And he was president of his class, actually, of 32. So,
yeah.
Anyway, well, you're homeschooling, so that's not bad. Anyway, thank you, Joe. Everybody is getting ready for the school year, so this information is vital. Homeschool your kids if you possibly can, or your grandkids.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hughey, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.